Charleston, 2037. The smell of salt and storm still clung to the wooden doors along Shem Creek. Harriet Rowan, though everyone in the neighborhood called her Gran Hattie, was kneeling on her porch, dirt still on her weathered hands as she replanted the sea lavender her grandson Lucas used to love. She had been living quietly, holding on to memories in the storm-proof house she and Lucas once called home. Since his sudden death from a heart attack, the silence of the creek had felt unbearable. Some nights, she swore she could still hear his laughter mingling with the cries of gulls circling above the docks. The rumble of a delivery van broke the stillness. A courier in a neon rain jacket stepped up, handing her a thick envelope stamped in bold red. Court Notice Probate Division. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Her eyes caught the first lines. Claimant, Sierra Vale, biological mother of Lucas Rowan, hereby contests the will and asserts rights to the estate. Hattie froze. For a moment, the world tilted. Sierra Vale, the daughter who had walked away 25 years ago, leaving a frightened 5-year-old boy on her doorstep with nothing but a worn backpack and a stuffed dinosaur. She hadn't called on birthdays, hadn't shown up for graduations, hadn't even sent a card when Lucas built his robotics company from scratch. And now, she was back, not to grieve, not to honor her son, but to fight for the $1 million Lucas had left to the only person who had truly raised him. Hattie let out a bitter laugh, folding the paper with a snap that echoed louder than the seabirds. Biological mother, she muttered under her breath, eyes sharp as steel. Blood may give you a title, Sierra, but love gives you the right, and Lucas knew exactly who stood by him. The wind picked up, scattering petals across the porch. Hattie gripped the notice tighter. Her grief was still raw, but in that moment, sorrow hardened into resolve. Because Harriet Rowan had survived storms before, and this time she was ready for the fight of her life. The night after the court notice arrived, Hattie sat alone at her kitchen table. The storm shutters still rattled from the coastal winds, but the house felt emptier than ever. On the table lay the leather satchel Lucas had given her for her 67th birthday. She hadn't had the strength to open it until now. Inside was the envelope Mr. Pytel, Lucas's estate lawyer, had handed her a week earlier. She unfolded the letter carefully, recognizing the neat, deliberate handwriting she'd seen on thank-you notes since he was a boy. Dear Gran Hattie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I need you to know that every good thing in my life started with you. You saved me at 5 years old when I needed someone to believe in me. You showed me I was wanted. You made me more than just a boy with a broken past. You made me family. Everything I've built, I built on that foundation. And now I want to make sure you're taken care of the way you always took care of me. Her tears blurred the ink, but she read on. Do something amazing with it, Gran. Build something that outlasts both of us. The words cut deeper than any knife. Memories flooded her. The night she sat up with him through a thunderstorm, his tiny body curled against her as he whispered he was afraid. The mornings she packed lunches for school after a double shift at the hospital. The afternoons he tinkered with scrap metal on the dock, dreaming up machines that would one day save lives along the coast. Lucas had grown into a man who owned 2 homes, founded Blue Harbor Robotics, and was respected across the state. But to her, he had always been the boy who held her hand at the county fair, insisting she ride the Ferris wheel even though he was terrified of heights. She smiled through her tears, clutching the letter. That boy had left her more than money. He had left her proof that love outlasts abandonment, proof that the bond they'd built mattered more than blood ever could. Then, as if to shatter that fragile moment, her phone buzzed. The name flashing across the screen made her stomach clench. Sierra Vale. 2 years of silence and now a call. Hattie swallowed hard and answered. Hello, Sierra. No condolences, no grief, just a cold, sharp demand. Mom, we need to talk about Lucas's will. And just like that, Harriet Rowan knew The storm wasn't over, it had only just begun. The line crackled with silence after Sierra's blunt demand. Hattie pressed the phone closer to her ear, waiting for some sign of remorse, some whisper of grief. But Sierra's voice came sharp, businesslike. "I know about the money, Mom. Don't play dumb. As Lucas's biological mother, I have rights here." Hattie almost laughed at the audacity. Rights, from the same woman who had dropped her son like an unwanted suitcase. "What rights would those be, Sierra?" Hattie asked, her voice steady but laced with steel. "You weren't there for his school plays. You didn't sit with him when he was sick. You didn't celebrate a single birthday in 25 years. You walked away." Sierra's breath hissed through the line. "That's not fair. Things were complicated back then. Brad didn't want kids. I was young and overwhelmed. I thought Lucas would be better off with you." "Better off?" Hattie repeated slowly, her knuckles white around the phone. "You called abandonment a favor." For a moment, Sierra said nothing. Then her tone hardened. "Regardless, the law recognizes me as his mother. I want to see the will. I want copies of all financial documents. And if I have to contest this in court, I will." Hattie closed her eyes. She could almost see Lucas at 5 years old, standing at the window clutching that stuffed dinosaur, watching his mother drive away without a backward glance. Now that same woman was demanding his legacy, money he had worked his entire adult life to build. "You do whatever you think you need to do," Hattie replied at last, her voice quiet but firm. "But remember this conversation, Sierra. Remember that you chose money over decency, because I will remember it too." She ended the call. For a moment, her kitchen was so quiet she could hear the old clock ticking against the wall. She set the phone down, staring at Lucas's letter still spread out on the table. The grief that had hollowed her out these past weeks shifted, reshaped itself into something sharper. Anger. And Harriet Rowan had learned a long time ago. Sometimes anger was exactly what you needed to fight back. 2 mornings later, Hattie found herself sitting in a leather chair across from Asha Patel, the young attorney Lucas had trusted with his estate planning. The office smelled faintly of cedar and coffee, but Hattie's palms still sweated against the polished wood table. Asha leaned forward, her dark eyes calm but focused. "Mrs. Rowan, Sierra Vale has officially filed to contest the will. She's claiming you manipulated Lucas and that he was under emotional duress when he left everything to you." Hattie let out a dry laugh. "Manipulated? I raised that boy. I worked double shifts so he could go to college. I drove the same beat-up truck for 15 years so he could have piano lessons and robotics kits. If that's manipulation, then call me guilty." Asha smiled faintly. "I believe you, but in court we need more than belief. We need documentation." She slid a legal pad across the desk, her pen tapping down the list she'd already made. "School records listing you as guardian. Medical records with your name as emergency contact. Financial receipts for his education and activities. Any communications, or lack thereof, from Sierra." Hattie stared at the list, her chest tightening. "Communications from Sierra?" she echoed. "That'll be short. 2 birthday cards in 25 years. A handful of generic Christmas cards with nothing but her signature." "Good," Asha said firmly. "Sometimes absence is louder than presence." That night, Hattie pulled dusty boxes down from her attic. One by one, she spread their contents across her kitchen table, report cards with teacher comments praising Lucas's kindness, programs from his high school, plays with her name listed as parent guardian, medical bills in her handwriting marked paid, and college tuition receipts with her bank account scrawled across the top. Each piece of paper wasn't just evidence. It was a memory, a life built together. Proof that love had left a trail deeper than blood. And then an idea struck her. She remembered her neighbor across the street, Mr. Cho, the retired photo shop owner who had kept meticulous records of deliveries and pickups in the neighborhood. If anyone had noticed Sierra's rare, awkward visits, or the strange pattern of returned mail, it would be him. By midnight, Hattie sat back, surrounded by the paper trail of 25 years. Her grief hadn't disappeared, but it had found purpose. She whispered into the quiet room, clutching Lucas's letter once more. "You asked me to build something that outlasts us, baby. I will, and I'll start by protecting what you built from the person who left you behind." The Charleston courthouse smelled faintly of varnish and salt water, the scent of a city that had learned to rebuild after every storm. Harriet Gran Hattie, Rowan sat in the front row, her best navy suit pressed smooth, the same one Lucas had bought her for his college graduation. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes never left the bench. Judge Alvarez, silver hair pulled tight into a bun, presided with the steady calm of a woman who had seen every kind of family betrayal cross her courtroom. On the other side sat Sierra Vale, dressed carefully in muted black, her hair pulled back just enough to make her look younger, softer. She clutched a tissue in one hand, dabbing at perfectly timed tears. Her lawyer rose first. "Your Honor, we intend to show that MS. Vale, as Lucas Rowan's biological mother, was unfairly cut out of her son's estate. We will prove that Mrs. Rowan exercised undue influence, alienating Lucas from his natural parent, and manipulated him into leaving everything to her." Hattie kept her face still, though every word felt like a slap. Manipulation, alienation. They made 25 years of love sound like a crime. When it was Asha Patel's turn, she rose with quiet authority. "Your Honor, the evidence will show a different story, one of a boy abandoned and a grandmother who stepped in. We will present 25 years of records, school forms, medical files, financial receipts, each one proving who raised Lucas, who sacrificed, who stayed." The first exhibits were simple. Report cards with Hattie's name listed as guardian, medical forms with her signature as emergency contact, financial records showing her paying for everything from asthma medication to robotics camp. Sierra shifted uncomfortably as the document stacked higher. Her lawyer objected once, twice, claiming the evidence was irrelevant, but Judge Alvarez waved each objection away. Then came the first witness, Mr. Cho, the retired photo shop owner. Small and wiry, with a voice like gravel, he testified about Sierra's sporadic visits. "I saw her maybe once or twice a year," he said, glancing toward the bench. "She'd park out front, sometimes stay 15 minutes, maybe half an hour. Meanwhile, Mrs. Rowan was there every day, rain or shine. Everyone in the neighborhood knew who Lucas's real parent was." Sierra's jaw tightened, but the real crack appeared when Asha introduced the neighborhood delivery logs. Mr. Cho had saved copies, noting returned mail for years. "Packages addressed to 1427 Maple Street," Asha explained to the court, "were always returned. That address doesn't exist. It's a vacant lot. Yet the sender listed on those returned envelopes, Sierra Vale." A hush fell over the room. Judge Alvarez adjusted her glasses, studying the log. "Are you saying MS? Vale deliberately sent correspondence to a false address?" Asha's voice was cool, measured. "I'm saying the paper trail suggests a pattern of appearances, not of presence, but of performance." For the first time, Sierra looked rattled. The tissue in her hand shredded slightly under her grip. Hattie sat back in her chair, the faintest spark of hope stirring in her chest. She wasn't naive. She knew this battle was far from over. But for the first time since Lucas's death, she saw it. A crack in Sierra's perfect facade. And once a crack appeared, it could spread. By the second afternoon in court, Sierra's lawyer strutted to the bench with a smug smile. "Your Honor, we have documents that prove MS. Vale financially supported her son for a decade. Monthly payments, $500 each, sent without fail." He handed a thick manila folder to the clerk. Inside were glossy copies of prepaid card reload receipts, rows of them, spanning from 2007 to 2017. Sierra straightened her shoulders, finally looking victorious. "See," she whispered loudly enough for the jury to hear. "I never abandoned him. I sent money every month." Asha Patel rose calmly, adjusting her blazer. "Permission to review the documents, Your Honor." The judge nodded. Asha spread the receipts across the projector table, one by one. At first glance, they looked legitimate. $500 reloads, Sierra's name scribbled across the signature line, dates neatly spaced month after month. But Hattie saw something flicker in Asha's eyes, a spark. "MS. Vale," Asha began evenly. "You claim these receipts prove financial support from 2007 through 2017. Is that correct?" "Yes," Sierra said, chin lifted. "And you personally purchased these prepaid reloads each month?" "That's right." Asha tapped one receipt with her pen. "Interesting, because this particular reload slip is dated June 2013, and yet the BIN code, the first 6 digits identifying the bank, belongs to a prepaid network that wasn't launched until 2015. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Sierra blinked. I don't know about codes. I just bought the cards." Asha didn't let up. She zoomed in on another receipt projected on the courtroom screen. "And here, January 2014. Notice the font on this receipt. That's Seago UI Microsoft System font introduced in 2016, 2 years after the date printed here." The jury leaned in, whispering among themselves. Hattie felt her pulse quicken. For the first time, Sierra's face cracked, eyes darting, mouth dry. But Asha wasn't finished. She flipped to the final page. "And every single one of these reloads was addressed to 1427 Maple Street, an address that does not exist. The actual home where Lucas lived, 1472 Maple, never received a cent. Isn't that convenient?" Gasps echoed around the room. Sierra's lawyer fumbled with his notes, his composure slipping. Then came the nail. Asha gestured toward the witness stand. "The defense calls Tiana Brooks, former USPS carrier for the Maple District." A tall woman in a crisp blazer took her seat, voice firm. "I worked that route for 20 years. I remember trying to deliver mail to 1427 Maple dozens of times. It was always returned. There is no such house. It's a vacant lot. I never delivered a single money order, card, or payment from Sierra Vale to Mrs. Rowan's address." The courtroom fell silent, except for the faint hum of the projector. Sierra's carefully constructed evidence, years in the making, was unraveling in seconds. Judge Alvarez leaned forward, her tone sharper now. "MS. Vale, do you have any explanation for this discrepancy?" Sierra's lips parted, but no words came. For once, the performance faltered. Hattie exhaled slowly, clutching Lucas's letter inside her purse. This wasn't victory yet, but it was the first time she truly believed truth had a fighting chance against lies. The courtroom was buzzing after the prepaid scam unraveled. Sierra's lawyer tried to recover, but the jury's eyes told the truth. They smelled fraud. Still, Asha wasn't done. "Your Honor," she said, rising slowly, voice steady as a drumbeat, "the defense has one final piece of evidence, directly from Lucas Rowan himself." She placed a small digital recorder on the evidence table, its surface worn from years of use. Hattie's heart leapt. She recognized it instantly. The recorder Lucas carried everywhere, the one he used to protect his business deals. Asha addressed the judge. "This is a recording made 6 months before Mr. Rowan's death during his estate planning session. The file is time-stamped and notarized with blockchain verification. It is Lucas's voice, his intentions in his own words." Judge Alvarez nodded. "Play it." The clerk pressed a button, and then clear, steady, unmistakable Lucas's voice filled the courtroom. I want to make sure everything goes to Gran Hattie if something happens to me. She's the only real parent I've ever had." Hattie's throat closed. Lucas's voice continued, calm but resolute. "My biological mother, Sierra Vale, has reached out a few times, mostly for money. I've never had a relationship with her. She abandoned me, and I don't want her to have any claim on my estate. Mama Hattie stayed. She's the one I trust." The room was dead silent. Not a shuffle, not a cough. Just Lucas speaking from beyond the grave, his words slicing through every lie Sierra had spun. Then came the final blow. "I've saved copies of every message Sierra ever sent me. Most were excuses or requests for cash. I've documented it all. If anyone questions my wishes, this record will prove them." The recording clicked off. Sierra's face went pale, her tissue shredded to confetti in her hands. Her lawyer tried to rise for an objection, but Judge Alvarez's gavel hit hard. "Enough! The decedent's intent is clear. This court has heard his wishes in his own words." Hattie closed her eyes. Tears slid down her cheeks, not of grief this time, but of release. Lucas had spoken. He had defended his life, his choices, his love. And no amount of false receipts, no crocodile tears could erase that truth. For the first time since this nightmare began, Hattie felt something powerful rising in her chest, peace. Because sometimes, even after death, love still finds its voice. The air in the courtroom was heavy, as if everyone had been holding their breath since Lucas's voice filled the room. Judge Alvarez removed her glasses, her gaze firm but softened with something almost like respect as she addressed the court. "Based on the evidence, financial records, eyewitness testimony, and Mr. Rowan's own recorded statement, this court finds that the will is valid and reflects the decedent's clear and intentional wishes. All assets will be awarded to Mrs. Harriet Rowan. Furthermore, given the fabricated financial records submitted by Ms. Vale, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of possible perjury and fraud." The gavel struck like thunder. Sierra Vale shot to her feet, her voice cracking. "This isn't fair. He was my son, my blood." Judge Alvarez's eyes cut her down in a single glance. "Blood alone does not make a parent, Ms. Vale. Court is adjourned." The jury filed out silently. Reporters scribbled in the back row, and Sierra stormed from the courtroom, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor like gunshots fading into nothing. Hattie remained seated, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't gloating. She simply whispered under her breath, "You stayed with me, Lucas, and I stayed with you." 3 months later, the Shem Creek docks were alive again, not with sirens or subpoenas, but with laughter. Children in bright yellow vests leaned over the railings, watching small marine robots skitter across the water. A banner hung above the pier. "The Lucas Rowan Foundation Scholarships for Coastal Youth." Hattie stood at the podium, her navy dress crisp, the sunlight bouncing off the water behind her. She took a deep breath before speaking. "Lucas believed in second chances, chances to learn, to build, to dream bigger than the life you were handed. This foundation will make sure children who have been abandoned or overlooked will have those chances. It's what he wanted, and it's how I'll honor him." Applause rolled over the crowd like a tide. Hattie stepped back, eyes misty but bright. For the first time since the storm that had taken her grandson, she felt steady again, because Lucas's legacy wasn't just money in a bank or shares in a company. It was a testament to the truth they had lived. That love leaves evidence. That family is not defined by blood, but by who chooses to stay. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, justice really does prevail.